I have become such a huge fan of this show, American Soul, and tonight's episode did not disappoint. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to KRS TV. This is your boy Kenny, and this is American Soul Season 1, Episode 3, and the name of this episode is Lost and Found. This was a really good episode because we really see throughout the whole episode people who are lost and they find their way back. So, the episode opens up with the Clark family. That consists of Brienne, who's played by Kelly Price, and her two children, Simone and Kendall. Now, we saw in the last episode that they got word that their father was killed in Vietnam. So they're now at the the repast, and we see that the mother picks up the American flag that they give to all the men who serve. The army gives them an American flag to their family. And Brienne says, I gave the army a great man, and this is what they gave back to me. So we see that, throughout this whole episode, we see Brienne, Simone, and Kendall going through the motions after losing their father. Then we also see that Tessa, is going through her house, and she finds a picture of when she was in this ballet called The White Swan. So we know that Tessa was a professional dancer. And the question is, what happened that she no longer pursued her career? So then we also see that Don Cornelius is struggling to get axed on Soul Train, because even though he landed Gladys Knight in the Pips for the first syndicated episode, he still had trouble within the first 2 seasons, trying to find top acts to be on the show. And we see that he's trying to get Marvin Gaye, but he gets turned down. Then he gets a call from his wife, Dolores. And we kind of see that their relationship has been strained because he's been in Los Angeles and she's been in Chicago. But she calls to let him know that their son, Tony, is missing. And they going back and forth. And he was like, well, I don't know what you want me to do, Dolores. I'm 2,000 miles away. She says, exactly, Don. And then, they just kind of go back and forth about that whole situation. And definitely the mother is scared, shook, and furious because her son just disappeared out of nowhere. And she has no idea where he is. So then afterwards, we see he pretty much tells her that I'll get the next flight out. We see that he goes to talk to Bruce. Bruce tells him that you got 2 flights. There's one, but then, we definitely... so then they tell him that Bruce tells Don that, okay, we got 2 flights. One, is in the morning, but then that's gonna cut into the time on the show, or you can do one that's right after dinner. He says, I'll take the later flight. And then he ends up giving Bruce the list of the next top 5 acts that's supposed to be on Soul Train, and he was like, dude, the reason why we got the sponsors is we did promise them that we were going to deliver top acts. 2 of them are light, and the rest of the 3, they suck. And Don proceeds to tell Bruce that my job is to get the talent. Your job is to get the money for the talent. Do your job. And he was like, yes, sir. So we already know Don is the boss, and what he says goes. So then we see that at the wake, JT shows up to offer his condolences. He talks to Brienne and lets her know I'm deeply sorry for your loss, and my condolences to you. And she says thank you. And we also see that Kendall, son, and his baby mother are there to lend their support as well. And then we also see Don Cornelius doing a promo for Kentucky Fried Chicken, which becomes one of the sponsors of the show. And we see that Bruce comes up with $12,000 for the next act. So he says that, okay, my job is to get the money. I did my job. So then next thing you know, we see that Tessa is coming on the set with some guards, and she's trying to say that, look, there is no way in the world that Don is not a good father. because what ends up happening is that little Tony hopped on an Amtrak from Chicago to LA, and he just shows up on Don's set, and Don is pissed, because he's like, what the hell is going on here? So of course he talks to Tony. He's like, what the hell were you thinking, boy? Like, your mother is going frantic. She don't know where the hell you are. How the hell did you even get here anyway? And he said, I took the Amtrak ticket that you sent to Mom. I took it and came down here. And he was like, do you know what the hell you could have put yourself into? Like, anything could have happened to you, boy. Are you crazy? And he's like, come on, Dad, I'm not a baby. So Don was like, and it makes Don have a flashback to a relationship with his father, and his father kind of gave that same type of tough love to him because his father was teaching him how to box, and he pretty much tells Don because he's kind of like doing some moves with his dad, and his dad's like, you haven't been practicing like I told you to. He's like, yes, I have, and he was like, don't lie to me, boy. You either can be a boxer like Joe Louis, or you can end up being a mailman like me. And we see that his father didn't take it easy on him, because the next thing you know, and Don at the time was like around 7 or 8 years old, his father literally knocked the shit out of him. So his father gave him a lot of tough love, but we kind of see how it's different from one generation to the next. His father was very tough on him, but we see that with Tony, he's tough on Tony, but he also knows how to be tender with Tony as well. So something that his father didn't know how to do. So he pretty much tells him like, oh, okay, you grown? Okay, since you want to be grown, Tony, I'm going to teach you like you grown. Okay, Tessa, make him, find something for him to do, and anything Miss Tessa tells you to do, you do it, and you don't give her no lip back. And then Tessa was like, whoa, John, you just can't be changing my job description. I'm not a babysitter. He's like, it's funny because I didn't ask you to be one. Work him like everybody else, and left it at that. So then we see back at the Clark home, there's a scene between JT, Simone, and Kendall. Kendall is furious, and he's like, I ain't got no time for no $50 gigs and shit. Yet we need to pull our shit together and really go for something. But Simone is like, look, it's an opportunity, we just got to keep taking every opportunity we can get until we get to the next level. It's like, isn't that what Dad would have wanted for us? And he was like, well, yeah, but that was all before Dad died, wasn't it? So Kendall right now emotionally is just all over the place because he was about to be sent to Vietnam, but now he doesn't have to go to Vietnam because his father died. So he's dealing with that, and then also dealing with the fact that he's a single father, and he's dealing with all of these issues. And then they actually show a scene where he looks over his son. His son is playing with the army, and he says that he's with his mom, and the little boy is like, so which one of these is grandpa? She's like, I don't know, you choose. She's like, he's gonna be this one because he's the greatest. So we're seeing that Kendall is really dealing with this, and it's really becoming really hard. But Simone wants to do the gig anyway. She don't care. And JT, being her boyfriend, is trying to be emotionally supportive and was like, look, why you don't need to do this right now. Wouldn't your dad would want your heart to heal before you get back into music? And she was like, well, how would you know that? Your dad was never around. I was like, see, y'all gonna stop coming for JT. Because yes, you guys have been dealt a major blow because your father wasn't around. But JT has no mother or no father because his mother's an addict. So literally, JT is raising himself. And JT has it harder than Simone and Kendall because they at least have a strong mother. JT don't even have that. And he was kind of like taken aback by that. He was like, okay, you just do what you want to do. But I like JT because JT comes through later on in this episode. So then we see that Don's in his office, and he gets an interruption from this girl named Mona St. James. Mona St. James come in there serving tits and ass because she has on a fur coat, takes off the fur coat, she got on some lingerie, and she's just serving up her goodies and saying that she's an actress, an artist, and an entrepreneur, and she's really using her feminine wiles to get Don to pay attention to her. So then we also see that Tessa is working the dancers, and Tony said that can I have $1 because I lost my dollar to get something out the vending machine. She takes him to go see his father, but she sees that Don is closing the blinds and everything. So she's like, okay, we'll figure something out. You like biscuits, baby? And takes Tony to get something to eat. And while he's closing the blinds and everything, we're thinking he's about to get it in with her. But we see that doesn't happen. And he pretty much tells her that, hey, you want to go somewhere more private? And she's like, absolutely. So her and Don are walking, and he pretty much says that, before we go to where we're about to go, if you're really serious about getting into the business, I got 2 words of advice from you. And she's like, okay, Rockefeller, lay it on me. And he said, absolutely. And these 2 things I learned from my father. And he says, 1, success doesn't happen by chance, it happens by choice. What you do and what you don't do defines who you are. And then number 2, never let a trick trash your future. Get your ass off of my set. And threw her off. And afterwards he smiled, and I was like, that gave me a whole level of respect for Don, because Don wasn't about no bullshit. And she mad as hell, talking about, you ain't shit, Don Cornelius. I'm like, bitch, you just talking shit because he cracked your face. Because she really thought she was going to get her way with Don because she was serving sex. Don turned that down because he's like, you can ruin everything for me. And I'm not playing that game. Because he was a man that was about working honest for what you want, not trying to find shortcuts or trying to sleep around to get to the next level. So when he threw her off the set, that gave me a high level of respect for him. So then we see that Don books an act for the show, and he books Rufus Thomas, who's played by Bobby Brown. And I have to say, Bobby Brown did his thing, playing Rufus. And he even tells Bruce, not one word, because obviously this is one of the acts that Bruce said sucked, and he said not one word. So we see Rufus going through, and he's like, hey everybody, how you doing? Yeah, just being himself. And then he's like, oh yeah, and make sure that they get my check. Like, he was just over the top. So we see all that go on. Then we see JT meets up with the crew, when they, the crew that was robbing that jewelry store. One of the dudes is actually in the hospital, and also an officer is dead. And we also learned from the last episode that Tessa's husband is a black detective who's on the case. And we see that they're actually at the hospital waiting for this guy to come out of his coma so they can start asking him questions. But then the cop was like, regardless whether he admits it or not, he's a dead man walking. So then we see that JT meets up with the crew or whatever, and they're talking about continuous revolution and progress. Remember, they talked about that in the last episode. But JT's like, look, I need rent money. And he was saying that, shoot, why don't you just move in with us? We got a spot. He was like, no, I got a mother and a sibling, and I'm not gonna see them on the street. So I need some help. So he gives him some money. And then he says, well, what about Latch? And he was like, look, Latch is a soldier. He's going to be fine. And he says, as long as the police don't come around, we all good. And he was like, what do you mean all? I didn't rob nobody. I didn't shoot nobody either. And he was saying, and the old boy told him that, hey, if one of us go down, we all go down. Continuous revolution and progress. I was like, see, they are really right now, he's starting to see that they are a bunch of vigilantes. They create a whole bunch of drama for themselves. Even though their intentions are good, their actions are way off base because they're putting each other in danger. And then they actually get a model of the car, and it's JT's car. So JT could be caught up in this situation, and all he did was drive the car. He didn't rob anybody. And they just pretty much told him that, if you see anything suspicious, flash the lights. So JT knew they was going to do something, but did not know exactly what they were going to do. So then we see all that go on. And then we, going back to, on the set of Soul Train, we see that Rufus done got with the girl Flo. And we see that Flo, has become one of the popular dancers on the show. And there's always there was a lot of competition amongst the Soul Train dancers. So there's a girl trying to come for her spot and everything. But then next time we see Flo is rubbing up on Rufus Thomas, flirting with him and all that. And then we see Don goes over to talk to Rufus while Flo's all up on him. And he's like, yeah, Rufus, it's good to see you. I'm glad you're here to do the show. And he was like, oh, yes, what I need from you is a good intro. And also, that check you swung half of me, I would like it in cash because I got some stuff I want to do tonight. Yeah. I'm like, Rufus is a mess. And they got the right person to play Rufus Thomas because Bobby Brown did his thing on that. So he flirting with Flo and everything. And then the good thing about Rufus Thomas created some dance craze on the show. One, the funky chicken and the funky penguin. He does the funky chicken, got them dancing and all that. He's performing, and then he brings Flo on stage with him, and Flo is dancing on stage with Rufus. And we see that Don and Tessa are not happy about it, especially Don, because he's seeing the same exact thing that he saw with what's her name, Mona, earlier, the girl he threw off the set. He's seeing that same behavior. People who lost and trying to find their way, and they willing to do any and everything to get to that next level. So he's seeing her dancing on stage with Rufus, and he's pissed. But then he talks about the funky chicken, which was a popular dance, on Soul Train, because this is, planting that seed of creating new dance crazes on the show. So that's going on. But then we see later that Tessa, gets Flo and pretty much tells her that, you crossed the line. And she says, I know you. You're talented and you want more for yourself. But the rate you're going, when things fall apart, Rufus Thomas is not going to be blamed for anything that goes wrong. So, and she says, I see myself in you. You got it. But you got to do things differently. And then Flo decides to talk cash shit to Tessa and was like, everybody want to tell me how to live my life. Well, I'm going to let you know something. I ain't taking no jive from anybody that talks about me on the dance floor. And besides, if you really had what it took to make it, your bougie ass wouldn't be here wiping dons, now would it? I was like, oh, this little bitch. But we already know that this is Flo's character because we saw in the last episode how she locked Simone in the closet because she saw that Simone was competition and she wanted to get on that scramble board, so she locked Simone in the closet so she can get that spot. So we already know that Flo is the type of chick that would do any and everything to get ahead. But I was like, you are really feeling yourself, bitch, because that's the dance director. If it wasn't for Tessa, you wouldn't even be on the show. But according to her, she's thinking, hey, I'm making my best move and you just jealous because I did something that you didn't do. Because in her mind, she thinks she hot shit. But all that changes when Don decides to have a meeting with the whole cast and crew of the show. And he's asking them, I want to ask you something. Where are you? Where are you at right now? Because some of you would say you're in an old Hollywood studio. That's true. Some of you will say that you're a part of the hippest trip in America. That's true. And some of you are saying that, hey, you tired and you ready to go to hell home. But let me tell you where you are. You're standing in a dream. My dream. Dreams don't come fast, they don't come cheap, and they don't come easy. And you protect your dreams at all costs. I will protect my dream at all costs. So if you want to do what you want and say what you want, do it someplace else because you're not going to do it here. And he says, you're going to respect my set. There will be no flirting with the guests. There will be no sex on my set, not with each other and not even with your damn self. And then we literally see in this scene, Flo literally shrinks and she feels that big because he done put her on blast and didn't even use her name. But everybody knew that he was talking about that stunt that Flo pulled. And at one moment she was feeling herself and the next minute she felt that small. And I'm like, oh, so you really thought you was hot shit when you was talking to Tessa. But then when Don puts it out there that you was being a trifling hoe, all that went down. And she was just, I'm like, serves you right, bitch. Because again, Don is saying that you don't have to do that to make it. You have to work hard. That dreams don't come fast, they don't come cheap, and they don't come easy. Bitch, you was trying to pull an easy stunt to get to the next level, and your ass got checked for it. And I'm glad he did, because this episode gave me even more respect for Don Cornelius and for the man he was and for what he stood for. And then we see a scene where JT goes home, his mother's strung out again, and there's a hot pot on the stove that burns him because obviously she was using that to cook up her stuff. Then we also see a scene with the Clark family. They're having dinner and the water's dripping, and she said that I was leaving that there for your father to come fix it when he was going to come home, but unfortunately the dad never made it home. Then they talk about how the dad made lasagna with Tabasco and barbecue sauce and how it was hot. And then Simone says that she's going to go study with a friend of hers, and Brienne also notices that Kendall is going through it, that Kendall is just shooken up, and she says, I know what you're going through, baby, it will get better. But then he was saying that the only reason why I didn't go to Vietnam is because my father died. And she was saying that, look, you need to get past this. And we just see that, you know, Kendall is just going through. And then we see later on Kendall has a nightmare of being in Vietnam. So there is some PTSD that's going there, because losing your parent can be very traumatic. And for him going through this, it's really starting to affect him in more ways than one. And then we see a scene where Tessa and Don have a conversation after Don done spoke to the cast and crew and put Flo's ass on blast. And Tessa was like, now, those rules and regulations you set, don't they apply to you too? And he was like, look, I create the rules, it doesn't mean I can't break them. But then he was saying, but Flo, fire her ass and ban her from the set. Tessa stands up and was like, no, she's too good, she's very talented, just suspend her for like a week or two. So he decides, okay, fine, she suspended for a week, but if she tries that shit again, it's on you. And Tessa, you know, willfully goes along with it. And then we see that, you know, she done worked Tony's sleeping and everything, and she goes to kind of like look after him, and he's like, work him like everybody else, Tessa. And she just like, he's still a kid. And we see that Tessa has developed a close bond with Tony, which is cool. And we're starting to see how Tony became involved in being a part of the Soul Train franchise. So this was great, you know, because Tony has been there ever since he was a kid and practically grew up on the set with Don. And he's also the executive producer of this show and has been there with his father every step of the way. So I thought that was really remarkable to see how Tony got involved. And Tony just took a thing by chance and just went out there. So then we actually come to find out that, you know, Simone really didn't go to her friend's house. She went and took that gig that they were supposed to have. And she goes up in there and she sings her ass off. And while she's singing at this club, Tessa is dancing. And Tessa is one talented woman. Like, she is a real classic dancer, and the moves that she was pulling, she can teach all of them something. That's how good Tessa was. So she really was a true force. But I want to get a little back, you know, a little bit information about Tessa's story, and as to how she ended up, you know, giving up her career to be the dance director on Soul Train. And Simone kills it. Then we see that in a scene, Don is praying, and then all of a sudden Tony interrupts him, and he flips out. He says, oh, so you think you so grown you can just do what you want, Tony? What the hell you think you doing? You see I was doing something, right? And he's about to chase Tony down the hall, and he says, get back here, get back here. Then we get another flashback when Don was a kid and his father. He walks in on his father having sex with a whore. Father flips out, tells the whore to go. Then he has a belt and thinking that he's about to beat Don, but he doesn't. He actually sits there and he has a conversation with Don. He says that when I was about your age, there was this white girl that I used to play with, and my father told me to leave her alone, but I ain't pay my dad no mind, and one day he caught me and her catching frogs. He marched me home and lynch me on a tree long enough so I would know how he got those rings on his neck. So I was like, damn. So his father was more brutal than him than he was with Don. And he pretty much tells Don that, yeah, you may think you got it hard, but I had it harder. And your grandfather had it harder than the both of us. So don't ever let me catch you with a dirty woman like you just caught me with. And you better not tell your mother. And then we see that he has the same type of situation with Tony, but he's more tender with his son than his father was with him. So we're seeing that there is a progress as far as, this same issue that we have right now with toxic masculinity in the black community. And we kind of saw that in this episode. So he goes to find Tony in his room. Tony's crying, and he's pretty much saying that, look, I'm sorry for yelling at you, but he says that, look, you need to respect a man's privacy. And when a man is praying, that's private. But then he says that, stop crying, and he gives him $100 and says that you did a good job today. And here, working men earn. So he gave his son $100. He says, so whatever you want to do, we can do it. And then he pretty much says, I want to go to the movies with you. And he says, look a man in his eye when you're talking to him. He gets up and looks his father in the eye and says, I want to go to the movies with you. He's like, well, it's late. Only thing you got are the late shows. So, if you wanna catch one of those shows, you can. But you need to hurry. But we need to go. And he was like, okay. He says, you're not gonna fall asleep. He's like, no. So he's like, okay, come on, let's go. So then we saw that go down. And then, so then we pretty much see that they're pretty much making a crack in the case. They got the 63 Chevy Nola, so they know the model of the car. And also remember, there's a white cop who died, so they're ready to take down all whatever black people that were involved. And again, Tessa's husband is a part of the case. He's a detective. So they got all this information, and the white detective is telling Tessa's husband, we need to get a crack on the case, because whether he talks or not, they're going to take him down. So if you get him to actually give up somebody, that would actually help him in the long run. So then we see a scene with Simone. She decides to do a song to dedicate to her father. During the song, she kind of chokes up and she's not able to go on. But JT comes and saves the day with his guitar, and they sing the song, and they get a standing ovation. And then afterwards, we see that they go to the California hills, and she decides to give him her virginity in the back seat. And he was like, no, it's not supposed to happen like this. And she says, yes, it is. So her and JT get it on in the back seat of his car, the car that now the police have the description of. So JT could go down for this, even though JT didn't do anything but drive the car. So then we also see that afterwards, we see that Don sends Tony back home to Chicago. And when he gets there to his mom, he is mad. He is like, Dad told me I could stay and work on the show with him, but you made me come back. Why did you make me come back? I was happy out there with Dad. You should have just left me there. Why'd you make me come back? And then he starts resisting his mother, and his mother pulls him close because she knows he's being affected off of the fact that his parents are no longer together. I mean, they're together legally, but they're in totally two different states, living separate lives. And then he's like, why doesn't Daddy want to be with us? And he breaks down crying, and she pretty much tells him, like, look, your daddy loves you so strong. And don't you ever forget that. Your daddy does love you. And we also see that, also in this scene, that Brienne, in the next scene, we see that Brienne is trying to, she's still seeing that water dripping. She takes the wrench and she cuts it off. So we see that Brienne is really deeply going through the loss of her husband. And then we also see afterwards that Don is trying to get Ike and Tina Turner. He gets rejected again, and he flips out, and then it goes back to him and his father. This time, Don is is pretty much a grown man boxing with his father. His father's beating his ass, even hits him so hard that he knocks his front teeth out of his mouth. And then we see that Don comes back and beats his father's ass and knocks his father on his back. And he pretty much tells his dad, again, I'm going into the military and I'm going to marry Dolores. And if you got a problem with that, keep it to your damn self. So we see he pretty much had to fight to get respect from his dad. And then we see that he actually has dentures in his mouth, you know, to cover the teeth that his father knocked out of his mouth. And then we see that he actually gets a package from Tony. So Tony was still keeping in touch with him, and we see that Don smiles, you know, that he does love his son, and he's happy that he has a better relationship with his son than he had with his own father, that he's made progress. And I have to say, this was a great episode. I enjoyed it from beginning to end. But that's what I had. If I missed anything, put it down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But subscribe to my channel. Click that bell so you can get notifications every time I drop a video. Also, follow me on all of my social platforms. I have them all listed in the description box. Also, like this video, comment on this video, and share this video. And I'll be back with the next episode of American Soul. So until next time, everybody, take care.